You've done this. Something has gone quietly wrong in the room, and instead of standing up and leaving, you ask a question. Are you sure this is normal? Is this how it's meant to go? You're not gathering information. You already know. You're waiting to be given permission to stop. There's a famous experiment about exactly that, and you already know the number. 2/3 of people went all the way to maximum voltage. What you probably don't know is that the recordings still exist. Hundreds of hours of tape in a library at Yale. Researchers have been sitting in that archive for the better part of 2 decades listening, and the single most order-like sentence in the entire experiment turns out to be the one that never worked. Start with what actually happened. 1963, Stanley Milgram, in the Journal of Abnormal and Social Psychology. 40 men from around New Haven, recruited by newspaper advert, paid $4.50. 26 of the 40 went to 450 volts. That's your 65%. Here's the first thing that gets misremembered. In that study, the man in the other room never screams. He makes no sound at all until 300 volts. Then he pounds on the wall. Then he goes quiet. The screaming, the heart condition, the begging. Those come from later variations, and there were roughly 24 of those. A 2014 synthesis pooled 21 of them. 740 people. Obedience ran from 0% to 92.5%. The pooled rate was about 44. So 65% is real, it's just the 1 Milgram put on the cover. Now the part that's on the tapes. When a participant hesitated, the experimenter had 4 scripted lines used in order. Please continue. The experiment requires that you continue. It is absolutely essential that you continue. And then the 4th, you have no other choice, you must go on. That 4th line is the only actual order in the entire experiment. In 2013, a researcher transcribed 70 of those sessions, nearly every recording from 2 conditions, and found every single use of it. The 4th prod was used on 23 people. 2 of them delivered another shock. One of those 2 went all the way. 23 people were told they had no choice. 21 of them stopped right there. You can hear one woman answer him directly. I have another choice. I won't continue. A modern replication found the same pattern. Not one participant continued after the 4th prod. The experiment everyone cites as proof that human beings follow orders contains exactly one order, and its success rate is close to 0. It gets worse for the standard story. The script was supposed to be fixed. It wasn't. Gina Perry, working through the archive, found the experimenter, a high school biology teacher, repeating prods, delivering them out of sequence, inventing new ones. In one session, he pressed a participant 26 separate times. That isn't a controlled variable. That's a man arguing. And Ian Nicholson, using the same archive, showed Milgram misrepresented the debriefing. Some participants walked out still believing they had injured a stranger and weren't told otherwise for months. A few wrote to Milgram afterwards describing weeks of distress. That's a real injury. It's the kind of thing worth taking to someone qualified, not to a study. Then there's the question of whether anyone believed it in the first place. Milgram surveyed his participants afterwards, asking how convinced they had been. An assistant analyzed the answers. That analysis was never published. In 2020, Perry and her colleagues found it in the files and reran it in Social Psychology Quarterly using 656 of those questionnaires. In 18 of 23 conditions, the people who fully believed they were hurting a man gave lower shocks than the people who doubted it. Belief predicted defiance. Skepticism predicted compliance. Be careful with that. It's a correlation and it's self-report collected after people were told the truth, which is precisely when a person is most likely to claim they saw through it. It doesn't make the 65% fake. It does mean nobody can say for certain what that number was measuring. And this year, the strangest finding yet, 2 researchers writing in political psychology went back to 136 full session recordings across 4 conditions. Milgram's procedure had 5 steps for every single shock. Read the question, judge the answer, announce the voltage out loud, press the switch, read the correct answer. Of every participant classified as fully obedient, not one followed that procedure the whole way through. On average, the obedient ones broke it in roughly 48% of the shocks they delivered. They stopped announcing voltages. They read questions over the sound of a man screaming. The people who eventually refused broke it far less, about 31%. And the authority figure watching all of it mostly said nothing. The authors are careful. Audio tells you what someone did, not why. But their reading is hard to shake. The obedient participants weren't carefully following the science. They had stopped running the experiment. They were just working the machine. So does any of it replicate? Yes. Honestly, yes. Berger, 2009, 70 carefully screened participants. With the whole thing halted at 150 volts, 70% were still going, against 82.5% in Milgram's version. A team in Poland, 2017, 80 participants, 90% pressed the final button. The behavior is solid. People do keep going. It's the word obedience that doesn't survive. Look at what the tape actually shows. Tell someone they have no choice, and they find one instantly. Tell them the experiment requires it, and they stay. What holds a person in that chair was never a command. It's that leaving requires you to say out loud that the person in charge is wrong, to their face, with nothing to point at but your own discomfort. Which brings you back to the question you ask when you already know the answer. Are you sure this is normal? You're not confused, you're negotiating, you're looking for an exit that doesn't require you to accuse anybody of anything. Milgram thought he had captured the moment a person hands over their conscience. What's on the tape is smaller and much more familiar. It's a person waiting to be excused. Thank you for watching all the way to the end. If this video gave you something to think about, do one small thing. Subscribe to Cool My Mind Psychology. Every video here unpacks the hidden psychology behind how we think, feel, and act. And subscribing is how you'll never miss the next one. Take care of your mind, and I will see you in the next video.